Now, we're delighted to be joined by Jens Cornelius Knudsen, Head of Production Models and Partnerships Production TV2, and Mats Berggren, Chief Operating Officer, DMC Norway. So together, Jens and Mats will discuss the remote production in Norway of hundreds of games per year across a range of sports, including football, ice hockey, handball, volleyball, floorball and basketball. So over the next 20 minutes or so, we'll look at the range of sport covered by TV2, why Norway's largest commercial TV broadcaster decided to adopt a centralised production model, its relationship with DMC, and how DMC, a production services firm headquartered in Sweden, has gone about delivering all that live content remotely. So we'll look at the technology choices, the operational and logistical challenges, the lessons learnt so far, and how the relationship and TV2 and DMC's centralised production model is likely to evolve. So Jens, thanks very much for joining us. I wondered if you could get things going just by giving us a bit of an overview of TV2's sports offering.
Yeah, we have concentrated our attention on Norwegian sports the last few years. So we've acquired the football rights for the first top 4 male divisions and top 2 female divisions. We have the rights to all Norwegian handball, first and second divisions there, as well as basketball, volleyball and floorball. So total annual production of a multi-camera setup will be 1,050 games, all out of Norway.
And so why did you opt for this centralized production model? Can you just give us an overview of some of the reasons why, and perhaps just help to explain a little about how you went about producing coverage of sports prior to that as well?
We've always had a focus on centralizing our productions. When it comes to the Tour de France coverage, we do a partial production on site and then we finish it in a control room in Bergen. When we acquired the hockey rights last time, we agreed to do a 2+2 camera production of 228 games annually on top of the larger productions that we show on an open air channel. So already in 2019 we came up with a centralized production setup based on a vMix installation, and we also at that time automated the graphics workflow by using the metadata accessible through what's happening at the arena, enabling us to use single live as the graphic solutions, and by then both the vMix setup and the single live setup, we were able to have one single person in the control room with 2 staffed cameras and 2 cameras over the goals. And when you're operating in a country with 5.5 million people, you have to be cost conscious, and enabling us to do 228 games annually with 3 people involved in each production makes it actually worth it for the OTT service where those productions are published. Then we acquired the rights to Norwegian football, and we had to go from the previous right holder did single camera productions on the second level male league and the smaller productions on the women's league, and we wanted to increase that to a 2 camera production so we would have more slow motion, etc. The high number of games forced us to be cost conscious, and if you look at Norway, put a needle in Oslo, detach Norway from the map, the tip of Norway, northern tip of Norway, pointing southward, will go into Italy. So our transportation costs are high. They make up 30% of our production budget. If you're able to centralize everyone who's usually inside the Obi truck and keep them in Oslo, where most of the talent is located, we can cut costs dramatically. So we entered, or in our RFP, it was described that we wanted to have centralized production out of Oslo. We wanted to have smaller trucks to and from the arenas. And we wanted to automate as much as possible in the production. And that's what we've done along with DMC and NEP. So DMC has around 700 productions a year, plus a centralized VAR setup, and NEP has 350 larger football productions a year. NEP is at a 40-50% centralized setup now, and then we'll get a little bit higher over the years.
And that was an arrangement that was reached in March last year, is that right?
We signed with NEP and DMC around March 20th last year.
Right.
And then we needed to be on air with football on March 25th of this year.
Okay. So Mats, for DMC, headquartered in Sweden, so this was you guys starting from scratch effectively in Norway, is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. We started with the RFP process in December and then reached a final agreement, as Jens said, in mid-March. And we started looking for premises and things like that right away.
Yeah.
But it's been an extremely tight deadline to accomplish all this in such a short time.
So can you talk us through what that entailed? What did you have to build?
Well, it's a lot of technology, of course, but it's also crewing and all the staffing needed to handle the equipment, and some of it was also new equipment or new type of equipment. So we needed, of course, to train and educate people, new operators, new producers. We need to train the VAR people and the referees, of course, and built a completely new broadcast center in the center of Oslo with about 100 lines coming in and 30 leaving. We have right now 11 production centers inside the broadcast center. So varying from only 2 camera to up to 14 cameras. So it's for us it's a big setup, and DMC has in Sweden has a tradition of remote production. So this was like a national evolving step for us.
And so that build that you mentioned, that broadcast center, we've got a video which we can see now, which I think will help to explain to everyone watching and help to show them exactly what was required and what was part of that fit out as well. So let's take a look at that video now. Can you talk us through what some of those key technology choices were, and some of that, some of the key equipment that you've worked with Broadcast Solutions in installing?
Yeah, it was important for us to keep it as simple as possible to operate, because as Jens mentioned, crewing and moving crew across the country is a big cost, so we wanted to keep the crew to a minimum. And since Jens and his crew at TV2 has experience from doing the hockey with quite a few people, we want to do the same, of course, and we needed the kit on the arena to be as easy to operate as possible, to be able to do it by only 2 people. And usually people without technical training as well, since they're cameramen.
So what might be some of the vendors that you've worked with?
Well, the first choice we had to make was to choose between SDI or 2110. And on the contrary to what many people think, it's an obvious choice to go for a modern solution with 2110. We of course went for the easy solution, meaning SDI. So everything is SDI based on the arena side, and partly also in the broadcast center. But in the broadcast center, we opted for Riedel MediaNet as the core infrastructure to get a little bit of the networking benefits, but still being in the SDI domain.
Okay. And you've touched on the issues around staff and resource as well, which seems to be a common problem across Europe and further afield in North America as well. How did you go about solving that issue and recruiting people in the first place? Was that a challenge in itself?
It was indeed, and it still is, I would say, because TV2 has increased the volume of production going on in the business with a substantial number. So of course there is more people needed everywhere. So we had to educate some of our own people to have a chance at doing this at all. And that involved, of course, not only regular camera people, but also directors and producers for the... I refer to it as a one-man show, using the X1s and Simply Live stations for doing the production.
We have certainly reached the quantity that we wanted to reach, and now we can start focusing on the quality.
So what does that mean in terms of how you approach each of those sports then? Because you have a slightly different approach for each, and I guess depending on the sort of level, that tiering as well. So how do you kind of tailor your approach towards production in order to try and raise up those levels?
We do produce a lot of the games for our OTT service, and the majority of the games on the OTT platform is on the smaller side. We do have larger productions, and we've done a strategic choice of where certain games of high interest is placed. So we got to put some of the most interesting games on the OTT platform itself, and of course that's then a larger production. But in general, we've adapted. Well, first of all, a lot of it is defined in the contracts, number of cameras, etc. So my CEO forces me to stay with the number of cameras defined in the contract, even though I'd like to increase them. I have to be sensible and abide by the financial or financial side of this. But we we produce 1,050 games a year. We have lifted the second division men and first division women a lot by the number of cameras, and we have opted to move the internal production of 228 2+2 cameras. When I say 2+2, it's 2 staffed cameras and 2 cameras hanging over the goals. And we opted to move that out of TV2 and over to DMC. So DMC would have more of a business opportunity in that area. But we're adapting the number of cameras, of course, to the number of viewers we expect. Like I said before, we're a small country. And when you produce the amount of sports we do, you have to adapt to the number of viewers and subscribers you believe you can get.
So is that the kind of principal way that you would look to increase those production values then, through the number of cameras? I'm just wondering if there are other aspects you might be looking at that can be done in a sort of centralized production model as well, maybe where graphics come into that, or sort of other aspects of the coverage that you might be able to enhance for viewers.
On the graphics side, we're traditionally a VSRT house, but for this production we also wanted a lighter graphics solution, and hence we went with single live, which we had experience with from our hockey solution. The automation part, using available metadata, populating our graphic solutions, enables us to offer a proper graphics, or what most sports people would expect to see, and a lot of that is automated. So we've been able to deliver sports productions with very few people involved, but maintain a lot of the quality expectations you have in a sports broadcast.
And when you say very few people involved, can either of you give us a sense of what that figure might look like? How many people you're looking at on location at the stadium? How many back in the broadcast centre?
Well, so if you have let's say, take the hockey, which is, we have 2 photographers on site. And we have 1 director. And the director directs, takes care of the vision mixer, graphics, audio, slow motion, highlights. All that's combined into 1 person. So when you do 228 games with that staff and that setup, you are saving a lot of money. And when none of the directors have to travel to the arena, you start saving money. For our 5-camera centralized production, we have on site with NAP, the photographers, a combination of a floor manager and assistant audio, along with 1 engineer. The rest of the truck is at home. So audio, EVS operator. We don't have graphics operators on the 5-camera football productions. That's part of the automation setup. And the shading is home. So when you're able to keep half your staff at home in a country as long as Norway, that's when the savings starts coming. And the way we did this, we've connected 64 stadiums with a 10 gigabyte solution from Telenor. Enables us to transport all cameras and all videos, including all the super slow motion faces, back to DMC and NAP. So at, I think, maximum number of line smuts that you've taken on a single round of the elite division football is around 95.
Jens, I wanted to ask you about the length of the agreement with DMC. So it's a 6-year deal, isn't it? And I just wondered how you go about factoring into that advances in technology, and how you kind of make sure that you're always able to deploy and rely on the most innovative and cost-effective solutions as well.
I have an excellent legal department that wrote a fantastic clause in their contract with Mats, so that's all taken care of.
That's the secret, is it?
Yeah. Now, of course, taking this step, centralizing this amount of productions annually, that was a leap. And within the next 6 years or 5.5 that we have left, there will be a lot of new technology available, and then it's just a matter of working with DMC and NAP to utilize that technology in a way that not only benefits TV2 but also allows NAP and DMC to take the next step into whatever technology comes about. But of course, we do realize that what we're doing here, centralizing this number of games, has a weakness, and the weakness is the lack of being involved with the crew. In Norway, we have a lot of local crews that we use for these productions, and if they never see an engineer or a director or a graphics operator, there's a distance problem. We're growing apart, the cultures are growing in two different directions. So that's something that is important to be aware of. And so using some OB for the larger productions is an advantage in making sure you stay in contact with the local crew.
Yeah. Are there any other ways that you can try to address that, do you think?
We are going to have to twice a year gather everyone for a seminar and some social activities. Is that the energy, the knowing who people are, having been face to face with them, is important, and that's the biggest weakness with centralizing productions.
And so just finally, to wrap up, what advice would both of you give to any other broadcasters, any other federations or leagues, anyone involved in capturing and then distributing this content? What advice would you give to them if they were looking to adopt or kind of scale up in the same kind of way a centralized production model? What would be the kind of top tips that you might give to them?
My tip would be to start in good time because we did it with a little bit less time than we would have appreciated, I think. So prepare yourself in good time.
Yes, yeah. And Jens?
I think I would look at already established productions and start with crews that know one another well, where the format is known. So you're not actually trying to start with centralized in a new format. Take a production flow that you have full control over, and then start playing with that, splitting up the crew with centralized control room and people on site. Because if everyone knows their job and the technical people have time enough to do a proper setup, it'll go a lot smoother.
So thank you very much. It's been a fascinating insight into this mammoth centralized production operation. So thank you for sharing all of that with us. And we look forward to seeing how it evolves over the coming years as well. So thank you very much, Jens. Thank you, Mats.